I was out here walking with my wife and our dog, and the frost is beautiful again. And we were talking about echinacea on Instagram Live yesterday. And again, everybody needs to up their participation. I know. I don't know. I know. I don't want to be that person, but, I guess I could say it like this. Hey, kids, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell, turn on those notifications. So anyways, I was out here, and we had been talking about the echinacea yesterday and how the seed heads are so fantastic. And as I'm walking by them, I'm like, look at these popsicles of awesomeness. And again, let me recap the conversation from over on the Instagram Live. So echinaceas, a lot of people had complained about over the last couple of decades about them not being long-lived perennials and sometimes not even being winter hardy through one season. I don't know about the cold issue. I think sometimes that's more of a wet soil issue. But moving past that for a moment, we'll zoom in. Zoom. And by zoom, it means I have to move. That's what it means. So what I would say is people were really quick to judge echinacea sometimes in a negative way when it came to that issue. But what was happening was, here's sort of the list. There's 4 primary echinacea species in North America. There's Echinacea paradoxica, paradox, or whatever, Echinacea purpurea, Echinacea pallida, Echinacea tennesseeensis. So most of the varieties you see all these knuckleheads telling you about are Echinacea purpureas, right? This is actually what we're looking at here, the persistent seed head. So this is Ruby Star, sometimes listed as Rubenstern. So the problem is, long-lived perennial echinaceas, it goes like this. Here's the list from least, doesn't live that much, to most. Least, Echinacea paradoxica, Echinacea purpurea. Then it gets sort of tied, and there's not enough wide distribution of Echinacea tennesseeensis to really put it in this conversation definitively. So I would sort of put it out there in a to be determined. My experience with Echinacea tennesseeensis personally is that it is very slow to establish and does seem to be slightly finicky about soil, much more so than what I see from Echinacea pallida and Echinacea purpurea. The problem with Echinacea, we'll step in, this is a really good example of it right over here of the seed head. So the problem with this whole conversation is, where are all the varieties of Echinacea that aren't just about stupid flower color? There should be an Echinacea selection for this moment, because these seed heads are spectacular. It's one of the best winter interest plants that does well in a pretty wide range of gardens across the world. But even knowing that, look at that. Look how good that group looks. In the distance, that's Panicum virgatum purple tears. But that's been one of the problems. Let's check out purple tears while we're here. This is Panicum virgatum. Shout out Future Plants. Hope you're watching. And also Pete Aldoff, who it's a selection of his. In the background to your left on the big screen is Agastache, Agastaki, Blue Fortune. Doesn't really matter about the variety, though. There are some of these newer varieties, like Little Adder. But for the most part, you got to be careful with some of the small Agastache. I said it. I know nobody wants to talk about this, but some of those Agastache, the little ones from the smaller species that are more compact, I don't like them. These I love. This is beautiful and all the magic, and this is why I say I like these more than the others. Oh, because you don't get that from the others. That's the point. Look at this. Go back to the Panicum virgatum purple tears. So it's a selection by Pete Aldoff. It was introduced to the United States through Future Plants, and then Hoffman Nursery here in North Carolina had it in production. And I've got to say, there was a moment I had with this plant. We're past it now. And again, that's how gardening works, right? We don't have the same moment every day. We have a new magical moment, which is what makes it better. It'd be sort of boring. I mean, I'm in the fine art too, but I do occasionally go, once you pay $15 million plus for a painting and you've seen it once, I mean, I get it. You got to really put yourself in a position to think. But the one thing about gardening that's fantastic is, regardless of what person you are, if you're willing to take any time to pause, you can have some of these moments. Now, again, I'm sure the fine art people feel the same way. And maybe if I had a few spare $400 billion, I would buy some of that stuff too. So let's look down the long direction of the bed as the frost is starting to wane here a little bit. There we go. So there's our long border view at the moment. By next year at this same time, we'll have Echinacea pallida, which will be in here. Echinacea pallida is much slower to establish and grow. Once it establishes, it puts out a pretty good taproot, a little bit more than Echinacea purpurea does. Echinacea purpurea has large roots, large vascular roots, but it's not like pallida. Pallida has a legit like tap system almost. Echinacea tennesseeensis is very similar. Echinacea paradoxica also has that, but I think the plant is just used to a really fast-draining soil. And Echinacea paradoxica was where all those yellow and orange colors came from. It is natively, it's like a yellowy color. And the problem is any of the varieties you saw that sort of pulled from those color wheel, hues, like orange and yellow, they had less persistent. So some of the people who thought, oh, this plant isn't living through my winter, what it really wasn't living through is your wet winter soil, because it's from a region in like the Ozarks where they do still have some pretty decent drainage. The same thing is true with Echinacea tennesseeensis. It's sometimes from like gladed areas. It's about 70 miles to my east. I have been there. So when you look at that soil, although the soil is not the best, it's elevated slightly, so the water runs away from the tennesseeensis over the winter the same way it does from the paradoxicas. That's the problem sometimes. It's not the cold, okay? Sometimes it's the wet. And then, of course, the other issue is the persistence. Just remember, echinaceas are not going to be like a peony. It's not a 50-year in your garden plant. I've always approached them with about an 18-month expectation. That's it. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully we saw a lot of frosty goodness this morning. Hopefully one day we'll get an Echinacea purpurea / pallida cultivar that is completely selected for its winter interest and not its silly flower color, because there's like 4,000 of them already. We've had enough. Not that I'm thinking about it a lot, and not that there should be more of them, and not that any breeder out there that listens to this shouldn't introduce those types. You shouldn't. But maybe start thinking about some of them for winter interest. Just saying. Bye.